What we're going to do now is solve rational equations. We're going to be looking at two fractions that are equal to each other. So our first step for each one of these is to cross multiply. So we're going to multiply the 4 times the 5, and that gives us 20. We're going to multiply the 9 times the x plus 2, and that gives us 9x plus 18. I'm going to subtract the 18 to get 2. I'm going to divide by 9 to get 2 ninths. Now, there's going to be two different types of problems that we're going to be solving. One would be linear equations, just like this example showed. The other one is going to be quadratic equations. So looking at example 1, we're going to cross multiply. Once we cross multiply, we get 27 is equal to, and then 5x minus 15. I'm going to add the 15, and when I add the 15, what I get is 42. So 42 equals 5x. So I'm going to divide it by 5, and I get x is equal to 42 over 5. Now, once again, that's another linear equation. Let's look at the next one. We're going to multiply the 5 times the 2. That gives us a 10. We're going to multiply the x times the x minus 3, and that gives us x squared minus 3x. Here we have a quadratic equation. For quadratic equations, what we want to do is we want to set it equal to 0. And the reason why is because we can either factor it or use the quadratic formula. So in this case right here, we're going to look for two numbers that multiply together, give us negative 10, and they add up to negative 3. And that's going to be negative 5 and 2. So we have x minus 5 and x plus 2. And when we're solving it, we're going to get two opposites, which would be 5 and negative 2. Now, looking at the next one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cross multiply. That gives us x squared plus 6x. And then 2 times 2 gives us 4. I'm going to subtract the 4, so I get x squared plus 6x minus 4 equals 0. Once again, the reason that I subtracted the 4 is because this is a quadratic equation, so we set it equal to 0. This is not factorable, so we're going to use the quadratic formula. My a value is 1, b value is 6, and my c value is negative 4. So x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root. I have 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 4, all over 2 times 1. So x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root. That would be 36 plus 16. X equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 52, all over 2. 52 can be broken down into 4 and 13, and we know the square root of 4 is 2. So that would be x equals negative 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 13 divided by 2. And then we're going to divide each of them by 2. And we get a final answer of x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 13. So let's do a few more. For the next one, what we're going to do is we're going to cross multiply again. X times x is x squared. 3 times 3 gives us 9. Since it's a quadratic, I'm just going to take the square root, and x equals plus or minus 3. We could have subtracted the 9, set it equal to 0, factored it, and solved it, but since it's just an x squared equals 9, it's just easy to find the square root. For the next one, we're going to cross multiply again, and that gives us x squared plus 8x is equal to negative 15. I'm going to add the 15, and that gives me x squared plus 8x plus 15 is equal to 0. Two numbers that multiply together give us 15. Add up to 8 would be 3 and 5. So we have x plus 3, and we have x plus 5. And so our opposites, x equals -3 or -5. Looking at letter F, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cross multiply. And that gives us x squared plus x is equal to -8. I'm going to add the 8. So x squared plus x is equal to, x squared plus 8 is equal to 0. So my a value is 1, b value is 1, c value is 8. So x equals -1 plus or minus the square root, 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8, all over 2 times 1. So x equals -1 plus or minus the square root, 1 minus 32 over 2. So x equals -1 plus or minus the square root of -31 over 2. And whenever we have a negative inside of a square root, we're going to use an I. So that would be x equals -1 plus or minus I square root of 31 over 2. And that right there gives us our answer.